Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while. It's been a super busy period. All the after exam programs running around all over Singapore, teaching different schools. Yeah, I have been still coming up with still thinking through those times. So it was just more of getting the time to sit down and organize my thoughts and get this episode recorded. So this episode today is all about getting more by doing less. So I think this concept comes from the definition of leverage. So we all know the term leverage. So usually it's like, how do you get more leverage on stuff? And I define leverage as being able to get more out of doing the same or maybe doing less, right? So your output is increased by either using the same amount of effort or maybe even doing less effort, right? So if we think about when you want more leverage in a more mechanical term, it's like, you have a lever, right? And then you have a crowbar, right? You put the crowbar underneath something heavy. The further away you put force, the easier it is to lift it up. So less effort to, have the same amount of output, in a sense, if you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So if we if we translate this into thoughts, right? Or even actions that we do on our daily basis, like our habits, right? So what are the daily things that we can do less or the same of and either get the same amount of results or more? How do we do less or the same amount and get more results, or get the same amount of results by doing less? Yeah, so there are two ways to it. Either you do the same and then you get more, or you do less and you get the same or even more as well. Right. Yeah. So I would have to say that then this comes with the perspective of this is what works for me based on how I work, and hopefully through understanding how I do all these and how does it then affect me, maybe you can find your own different ways you can leverage your own habits and actions to get more of what you want by doing less. I think the main thing is just understanding how it's working. Yeah, in a sense. So I got 6 ways that I've realized I have been leveraging on to get more out of doing less or doing the same. So I'm gonna just walk you through all of that, and hopefully maybe even some of them will work for you. Yeah. So let's get into it. So the first one, I'm going to try to keep this episode short and sweet, alright? So the first one is, you heard me repeat this many times, okay? But it is a habit that I have very strongly believe in and have been really disciplined in trying to keep consistent for a long time already. So the first one is sleeping early. Right, so the action is sleeping early, and through sleeping early, I'm able to get more things out of this simple action, right? Or maybe do more things that used to require a lot of effort just by doing this one simple and not even off-putting thing. Sleeping is something that we all want to do, right? So I realized after I think back and trying to find ways to make my life more productive and maybe get more work done, right, I realized that I have zero productivity at night. And at night, I realized that I spend most of my time doom scrolling. So just endlessly scrolling for no reason, or binging shows. And even if I get to do the work I want to do, or when I even try to do the work that I do is just less efficient. So I spend a longer amount of time to come up with about an idea that is relatively similar to something that I will use shorter time in a different part of the day to come up with, right? So it's less efficient, right? So I would categorize my work as creative work, and I am just less creative at night, right? I will still be able to churn out ideas. So it doesn't mean like totally just nothing comes out at night. I mean, I still am able to think of stuff and get more ideas. But if I were to compare it to other hours of the day, it just takes longer and requires more effort. So again, for example, I get this idea A, right? And it is of this certain weight and this certain complexity, right? And if I were to compare it to maybe idea B of the same amount of complexity and same amount of weight, right? So idea A was turned out at night. Idea B was like maybe in the afternoon. So idea A took maybe like a lot of effort and a lot of effort and maybe like let's say an hour to come up with, compared to idea B where it was maybe in the afternoon. I was more active, more, you know, alert to say, because it was afternoon. It took me like half an hour to come up with the same kind of idea, right? So it takes longer and requires more effort at night. And moreover, I have a relatively active mind, and I found out that the more I use my mind at night, the harder it is for me to fall asleep. So even if I do come up with a great idea, I will end up sacrificing a good quality sleep, which will be of detriment to the next day's productiveness, right? So I can come up with a great idea at night, but because I maybe don't have a great wind down routine, or maybe it kept me up until very close to when I really had to sleep, so I had not enough time to really wind down. And when I want to sleep, I just can't sleep because my mind is still running. It is still actively working because the mind does not have an off switch, right? It needs to ramp down, and usually that takes about an hour, right? So it then affects the quality of sleep I get, which hence affects the next day's productiveness, because you wake up feeling less rested. Your mind is not at the optimum calmness and restorativeness as if you were to have a good night's sleep, right? So the pursuit of short-term outcome, which is getting work done at night, comes at the cost of a long-term pursuit, which is being consistent with your work, because you get good night's sleep so you can do more work the next day, right? So if you get a bad night's sleep, then that just curtails, or it kind of just becomes more inconsistent, because you have to catch up on your rest, and you feel less productive, so you don't feel as great. You don't feel as great, so you feel like you gotta work harder, and then the more you work harder into the nights, and then the more bad sleep you get, etc., etc. Right? So after making a habit of sleeping earlier and waking up earlier, converting the time at night to time in the morning, I think that's the frame that I was looking at it as. So if I were to say, my bedtime usually now is around like 9 to 10 p.m., right? So last time I would sleep around 12. So if I were to cut 2 hours from my night and replace it with 2 hours in the morning, like let's just say like block for block, right? Last time I would wake up at like maybe 9. Okay, so maybe now I wake up at 7, right? So I replace 2 hours at night to 2 hours in the morning, right? So I realize I generally get more things done in the morning and at a faster pace, because when you wake up, you're more refreshed, you're more ready to go and do stuff. You're more energized, right? But I also realize that comes with a caveat that I need to get a workout done to wake myself up, right? So if I have early mornings without a workout, they are less productive than those with a workout. Yes, so because you need to jumpstart your whole productive routine, and your whole mind has to wake up and all that, right? So yeah, so when I wake up in the morning, nowadays I tend to wake up at, if I go for runs, I will wake up at 5:10, about there. Then I will go for, depending on what day it is, I'll go for maybe a 10K zone 2 run, or I'll go for a long distance run as well. I'll usually finish at about 6 plus 7. I eat a breakfast, watch a episode, and then I'll get straight to work. So I'm recording this episode right now at 9. Yes. So I get my work done. And if I were to compare that 2 hours, or maybe even up to 3 hours in the morning, towards the 2 or 3 hours that I'll spend at night, the one at night would just be scrolling social media or watching YouTube or Netflix. Whereas in the morning, it's more of, I'm exercising, getting my work done, And maybe, yeah, I'll spend like half an hour of that watching a show while eating my breakfast, but it's not like uh, a bad cycle. Like it just keeps going on, right? Because I know I got work to do. So there will be a limit where I will stop and then I'll just like, okay, I gotta get to work. So just by doing this simple action of sleeping early, waking up early, I get more done, and that's leverage. Yeah. Number 2, staying quiet and gathering more information. So I believe that I lose more saying the wrong things than by not saying at all, right? So the common quote is don't jump to conclusions and also don't judge a book by its cover, right? So they both advise us to gather more information. And what happens is, and maybe this is a bit of like psychology and also like, from my interest in reading body language and mastering communication, naturally people want to fill up awkward silences, right? Which leads them to blab on and on and on. So great for us. It means more information that we can gather and we can collate, and the more informed we will be about whatever the conversation is about, right? So better yet, in group debates, right, when there's like more than, it's not one-on-one, like maybe there's 3 or 4 or maybe even a bigger group of people, right? It's better to just fade into the background and just hear everyone's perspective, gather as much information before offering anything with weight, right? So when I say stay quiet, right, I don't literally mean be quiet. I would maybe just rephrase that as be weightless in your words, right? So don't come in hot with like an accusatory statement and like taking a side and, giving your opinions straight away, right? So don't pick sides. Try to coax out more information. Try to bide your time until you feel like you have sufficient evidence to input something, right? So you don't have to be absolutely silent, but more like, okay, that's interesting. So what do you think about this, right? So you try to get people to talk more so you get more information back, right? So the idea is just gather more information before coming to a conclusion. Because nowadays, I think everybody just wants to be heard, which is not wrong. We all want to be heard. Our opinions are valid, and we want everybody to hear what we have to say. But is what we have to say the right thing to say at this point of time, right? Or is it a smart thing to say, and do you have the full picture? And a lot of people tend to speak their mind without having the full picture, which then costs them a lot more than not saying anything. Because I think when we think about not saying anything, I feel like we are letting go of our input and our control on what's happening, right? If we don't say something, the group is just going to go with someone else's opinion, right? But I rather they go with someone else's opinion than me, not say making a fool of myself, but just prematurely taking a stance that maybe later I would come to regret and realize that after hearing more of the story is the wrong stance to take, right? Then you have to like try to claw yourself back to where you came from, or you got to try to defend yourself, or you just dig yourself into a deeper grave, right? So I think it's just more of getting as much information as you can before you give anything of weight into a discussion. Yeah. And for me as an introvert, I love being quiet. But naturally, if it's a conversation with people I don't know, I would tend to just be more quiet. I would really just listen and try to get a sense of what's going on, who this person is, what's their whole personality like before I even choose the words that I want to say. Yeah, I will have thoughts, but when I'm waiting and gathering information, it's more of learning or just trying to piece out how should I say this that will probably land with them in a more receivable way, right? So, but with friends, right? Naturally, friends and my own teams, I'll be more involved in discussions because there isn't that like unfamiliarity. We know each other, so I don't need to take the time to understand what they're like. I already know what they're like, right? So I'll be more involved in discussions and mediations. And I realized that the later I came to a conclusion and offered whatever perspective I have, the more objective it probably was, and the less I had to say, oh, I didn't hear that part of the story, right? And so just by observing and being in the background for a longer time allows thoughts to form, pieces of the story to fall in place, and different perspectives to arise. Because sometimes you want to offer a new perspective, but then it's a perspective that's already been seen through, just that it has not been brought out yet, right? So the more you wait, then the more these things that you feel like it is groundbreaking, you realize that, oh yeah, it's already been gone through, or it's already been seen that way. And moreover, when people converse, there's so much information that is transmitted, which can only be processed by staying quiet and observing, right? So things like their demeanor, their personality, their habits, perspective, their intellect, and so much more. So I found that the more quiet I am, the more information I am able to get. And then this leads to me being of more value and contributing more to what's happening than just trying to get my ideas heard, right? So just by doing less, right? Like doing less literally, like you are not speaking as much, you are just being quiet, you're just watching and observing, you get more out of what you're doing. So you get more information, you are able to offer more insightful things and think a little bit more deeper rather than trying to find an opening for you to shoot your ideas in. Yeah, so that's leverage number 2. Leverage number 3. This one is really, really important. It's called question why. Like just ask why more, right? So, and when I say ask why more, I don't mean externally, like go to everybody and be like, why, right? I mean more internally first, right? So question why internally more. This, I realize, helps to differentiate the things I can soundly believe in and things I maybe should not believe in. Maybe yet. For example, if I realize I'm doing something I am unsure about, by questioning why am I doing this, I'll either land on a reasoning that I feel comfortable with or with one that does not make sense. So, for example, a comfortable reason would be, I believe I don't need to see a doctor every time I get injured because, so I ask myself, why? Why do I feel like I don't have to see a doctor every time I get injured? Because I feel like I've developed some competency in treating simple injuries because I've been through this training and that training, and through my experience, I've done this. Okay, so that's a comfortable reasoning, right? It makes sense. It's logical, right? As compared to one that does not make sense, like, why should you not go see a doctor because you got an injury? Because my parents used to say only go to doctor for serious injuries or serious accidents. Like, that does not make sense. Like, you can further question why. So why did your parents used to only say go to a doctor for serious accidents, blah, 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 right? So if you can keep questioning why, because the answer does not make sense, then keep questioning why until you find a reason that is comfortable, or you will just get to the place where you find out that it's just illogical. It just does not make, there's no grounding to that reason, right? So I think rule of thumb, if the reason is because someone told you so before, be cautious about believing it. So don't immediately discard it. So don't like absolutely like, go because this person told me I should do this, I should not, just ignore it, right? There may be some weight to it, but the only way to get to that source of why they believe that is to question why. So if we can't figure it out for ourselves and we want to know the reason why, then it doesn't hurt to ask the people who are telling you you should do this. Just why, right? What's the reasoning behind it so it makes sense, right? So for example, one thing that we're always told as dancers or athletes, right? We should ice our injury because my coach told me so, or because my teacher told me so, or because this person told me that when you get injured, you should ice your injuries. So we all know this is true, right? But did you know that icing can make some injuries worse? And so if you don't know why you are doing it, you are bound to get it wrong eventually, right? And hopefully it won't be so bad, but usually it has to pass a certain threshold of bad before you realize it is bad, right? There are some things you can get away when it gets wrong, but some things are just like above that threshold, and bad is really just bad. So I think at this point, if you want, you can just try to think about certain things which you do because people tell you to do it, but you don't know the real reason why. You have actually, if you really spend time to think about it, I think there'll be a lot that you will be able to come up with, right? So I found that the more I question why, the more agency and control I have about the things I do and what kind of life I live, because I'm no longer just replicating things that people tell me to do, right? Just like being a puppet, right? The person pull the string, so you lift your hand up, right? So the person say you should do this, so you do that, right? It's literally being a puppet, right? But like Pinocchio, once you cut the strings, you have to be able to take control of your actions, and you got to know why you are moving your arm this way, right? So why are you going to do that? You cannot just blame, or you cannot just reason it as, oh, because someone told me so. If you do that in a like a law room or in a court, right, they're just gonna, but you have your own agency, right? You are in control of yourself. Yes, you can be influenced, and yes, it still is that person's fault, whoever who told you, but it is your choice to then do it, right? So is it based on other people's passed down beliefs or influence, and maybe even social norms, or one that actually makes sense to me, right? Things that I'm doing. So just by simply questioning why more, I gain a whole lot more clarity and independence. Yeah, so again, we spend so much effort and time trying to figure out the purpose of life and why am I doing things that I'm doing, right? And you feel like it's a very, very deep question, and it takes a lot of effort and time to figure out, but you just have to ask why. And you can't ask why to people because you can't gain introspection from external sources. If you want to gain introspection, meaning internal purpose, you have to ask yourself so that you can give yourself the reason. If not, if other people give you the reason, it's not your reason, it's still their reason, right? So it's just more of asking yourself why more. I think you will gain a lot more. I have certainly have gained a lot more by asking myself why more, than actually like trying to find deep questions and like research on purpose of life and why do you do certain things. Just ask yourself why. Super simple. You get more out of it. That's a third leverage. Next one, we got 3 more. Okay, so next one is asking yourself or asking myself, how can I apply this to my life? So I am always afraid to make mistakes. I think it is built into everybody to not want to mess up. I am not against messing up. I encourage people to mess up, but I think we are still going to be like have a little aversion to messing up, right? We just don't want to mess up, right? I believe it is normal to make mistakes, but if I can avoid not making mistakes, why not? And so by simply asking internally, again, internal questions, right? How can I apply this to my life? I realize I am able to take learnings from anywhere and translate it to my own life, right? So everybody around us and ourselves too, we are constantly being tested by the trials and tribulations of the world, right? Challenges here and there, obstacles here and there, tough situations here and there. Everybody goes through it. So if I can try to learn not just from my experiences, but from others as well, hopefully I won't have to learn that same lesson others had to go through, like as toughly as they had to do it. I have that idea that I will still have to learn it some way, but hopefully it won't be as harsh or as challenging as they had to. That's the lesson they had to endure, because maybe I'm more equipped by learning a bit from what they have gone through. Does that make sense? Right? So I used to have the not my problem, why should I care attitude. And to be honest, I still think I actually do. So a lot of things I'm just like, just close my eyes and like, yeah. But at least now, like, before that happens, I have a quick analysis of what could have gone wrong before I dismiss it, right? So for example, I'll just have like, if I was in that position really quickly, or if this happens to me in this aspect of my life, what would I have done? What would I have done? Right? Just a real quick one. Right. So I think being able to dismiss it actually saves me from going too deep into the rabbit hole and overthink about it endlessly, which is what a lot of people also do, which is why maybe it becomes a detriment to them because they involve themselves too much in other people's problems. They want to learn from people's problems, but they make it their reality, right? But I think my ability to be like, not my problem, why should I care, is as like harsh and selfish as you might seem. Maybe that saves me from like going too deep and becoming too attached to that particular scenario, right? So naturally, I won't be able to predict everything that will happen, and I know that I won't have all the answers. But by this one question, I feel I am able to gain more perspective about different things and then incorporate them into my own experiences. Right? So again, it's the whole like you want to learn more, but you don't want to be tested on it. Yeah. So how do you learn more without being tested by it? Is you learn more from other people's experience, and then through observing other people's experience, you ask yourself, how can I apply this to my life? Right? So you go through less, but you gain more by learning from others. So again, leverage. Next one. This one is very simple. Take a moment. Just take a moment. So there are very few things I let myself immediately reply to. So even if it is just a few seconds of pause, I will resist the pull to react immediately. Not all immediate responses are responses that I regret, but almost, if not all, responses I regret are immediate responses. I repeat it again. Not all immediate responses that I give are responses that I regret, but almost, if not all, responses that I give and I regret are immediate responses. So I only recently started allowing myself to give maybe a bit more immediate responses after I was sure of my grounding, of my beliefs, my thought processes, and more. Right? So I would try to give this is it called simile or like analogy? Something that accurately or loosely represents this, right? Like when we think of immediate response, we think of immediate responders, right? To the scene of any situation, emergency, and whatever. Right? So if we practically look at immediate responders, before they are allowed to respond immediately to any scene, they need to be tested under pressure through simulations that the right things are ingrained no matter the situation. So again, it's like being certified. You have to be certified before you are able to go and save lives. This is just to make sure that when you are at the scene, you are gonna do the correct things, right? You are tested under pressure, that even with the immense pressure, you are still able to do the right things. So I see responding immediately as the same thing, right? And these immediate responses, right? So they have to be trained in it. They have to rehearse it over and over again behind closed doors, tested on it before being let out into the real world. So unfortunately for us, right, we don't have the safety of being behind closed doors all the time. So the next best thing we can do is provide ourselves and like make sure that we force ourselves to create that safe space for us to run through our processes by taking a moment before we respond. So a moment is very vague. Again, it could be a few seconds, it could be a few minutes, it could be even like a day, right? Give me a moment to think about it. I'll get back to you in insert your duration, right? So things that I feel I always look out for is, am I too emotional? Am I under too much stress? Do I really know the answer, or do I just think I know the answer? Is this what I want to say, or is this what I think they want to hear? Right? So is this my real feelings, or am I saying something that I just know they want to hear? Right? And what are the long-term effects of this response that I'm going to give, or these responses I'm going to give? What are the consequences of these responses? Right? So just like an immediate respondent needs to know what dangers and signs to look out for when they are at the scene, right? Like, oh, there's a fire here. Oh, there is this certain thing here that indicates that this certain thing happened, right? So we also need to know what to look out for when we are taking that moment before we immediately respond. So during training, spotting them will take time, right? Like, for example, if you've ever been through any training, when you are going through the training, there's always more time given for you to think through the process. Questions are asked to you, okay, what should you look out for? Okay, what should you be doing, right? And then hopefully by the time it comes to the time it matters, you don't have to go through those processes, because it's just like, it's instinct. You just ask yourself those questions. You just immediately spot those telltale signs, and it is automatic, right? And instinctive to neutralize all those, internalize and maybe neutralize some of those external factors. Right, and so by doing the simple thing of taking a moment, you improve your responses, which will affect the subsequent questions or subsequent things that happen. Right, so just by that simple take a moment, you are able to improve the things that happen after that. So again, leverage. And last but not least, I think this is one of my shortest episodes. Yay, more digestible for y'all. So the last one is how I try my best to optimize my work conditions, right? So again, productivity, I define, is the measure of work done against the time spent, right? So more work done in maybe the same time or less time. And then if you go back to leverage is getting more done from less effort or maybe the same effort. And so the holy grail of all of these, when you combine this, is to get more done in less time by doing less. Right? That's the holy grail. Right? You want productivity with more leverage. Get more done in less time by doing less. That just seems too good to be true. Right? So what I mean by optimize your work conditions is to try to get that equation, right? So, and again, I'm trying to do simple things. So by implementing small and simple changes, or by eliminating some things, hopefully I can get more output in less time with less input. So let's go through some of the things that I figured out are simple to do, and maybe it's simple for you as well. So the first one is, the easiest thing for us to change is our working environment, right? So I realized that I cannot work in my room unless I'm recording this podcast, because my mic is in my room and I don't want to disturb the whole house, right? But things like when I'm typing down my thoughts and I'm doing my editing and stuff, I try not to be in my room because there are just too many distractions. And so I usually either work out of my living room, or I will go to an outside space, right, where it's less familiar and there are less distractions that I know are out there. And yeah, it's more productive, right? So I'm not like tempted by my bed, or, you know, if I'm in the house, I usually like go get snacks, or like just, I don't know, just so much distractions because you're so comfortable, right? So that's the first one. Just simply by changing the environment I work in, I can get more work done. So next one is, when I work, I need music playing. Yes, I need music playing. But I realize that I always get distracted by hype songs, because dancer's problem, right? When a hype song's kind of like, yeah, right? Or I'm irritated by songs that I have no feel for. Like, yeah, this song I don't want to listen to, so I just press next, right? Because songs are always like 3 minutes long, right? it's always that intermittent distraction. Like every 2 minutes, I got to press next. Then I got to press next few times to the song that I want to hear. Right? Even if you curate a playlist, right? There is no playlist that's going to fit every single mood you're in every single day. Right? So, yeah, and many more reasons that I need music, but it does not make my flow conducive. It's just more of a distraction. But if there's no music playing, I can't really get work done. So it's like, so what's the issue? How's the solution? Right? So incidentally, when I was starting to realize all of this, I started discovering DJ sets on YouTube and SoundCloud, right? So if you ever been to like a party, the DJ would like just keep linking songs or chaining songs back to back, and it will become like an hour kind of long playlist or a set, and then it's just filled with cool songs, right? So once I discovered that like set format of music, like a 1 hour long playlist kind of thing, then it got me thinking like, okay, if I could find one style of music that perfectly fits every single mood that I'm in, not too hype, not too chill like lo-fi. If I play lo-fi, I will be bored out of my mind, right? If I find a perfect one, I could just like loop it, or maybe find DJ sets that are consistent with this vibe. So I don't have to keep changing songs because I would like the whole flow of it. So yeah, luckily for me, I found a really cool DJ playlist set that I now play for every single work session that I'm in on my laptop and stuff. Yeah, I don't have to like find good songs. I don't have to skip songs. I just find that set and that DJ, and I'll just like loop all of his stuff. Pretty cool. Next one. So still on the same topic of working conditions, I'll give you one more example. Right. So I found out that I have a very focused attention kind of mind. So if I'm working on this particular aspect, for example, working on my writing, I will keep at it. And if I want to change to another aspect in like the middle of the day, it would take me like a long time for me to switch modes, right? For example, planning for my dancers stuff, right? For me to get to like writing mode to planning mode and choreographing mode, there's just that very big hump that I gotta get over before I can fully immerse myself in that side of stuff, right? So I realized that was a struggle, and so if I let myself work more in blocks of time rather than trying to tackle many aspects in a day, right, I tend to get more stuff done. So now I try not to do too many different aspects of my life or different ventures in one day or different projects one day. I'll maybe just do one project one day, and I'll just like buckle in and just do that one full project for the day, and then maybe the next day I'll do something else, right? So I don't have to keep switching between different projects a day. I'll waste that transition time or the getting over the hump time to switch modes. Yeah. Right. Plus, the next thing I did was also my organizational layout on my laptop or notes is set up so it allows me to be locked in to only that particular aspect and no other distractions. Right. So if I'm doing my writing, it's mostly on my notes. So again, now I don't know about Windows, but Mac has this option of different desktops. Right. So I have one desktop that is just for my writing. So I got like my notes, my podcast, I got stuff, research stuff on that desktop. Then I switch another desktop, is my editing stuff, right? So I got my materials, I got my visuals, I got my Adobe stuff all up on there, and whatever I need is on that desktop. Then I switch to another one, is all my done stuff, right? So spreadsheets, timetables, etc., right? So even if I were to like, do the multitask, I won't like be able to see or get distracted by another aspect. Like, oh yeah, that one's happening on that aspect, right? I just see all the things related to this, and then I just like lock in and just stay focused on that one thing, right? So rather than working on 5 things a day and spending 9 hours a day working on those 5 things, and at the end of it having like just small little outcomes day after day, right? I can just spend maybe 4 hours working on a thing with huge outcomes, and then I just change what I'm doing, what I'm working on every single day. So I realize I get more done when I work in that format. But yeah, that's for me. I know some people are able to switch quickly between things. I'm not sure how much they get done, because even if I do switch between things in a day, I'll just get very little done. So it's like a little bit of everything. But if I would do one thing a day, I'd get a lot done for that one thing. So I don't know, collectively, I think those little bits every single day will not equate to a lot just by doing that one thing, one shot, one day. Pros and cons lah, right? But I realize this is what gives me more leverage. Yeah. And yeah, that's about it. So the general idea is just, trying to see how can you get more done or more outcomes by either doing the same amount of putting in the same amount of effort or putting in less effort, right? Either by changing the way of doing things or eliminating some things or yeah, just, I think that just all starts by analyzing the things that you want to change. What are the things you want to get more out of? Or what are you currently putting in a lot of effort in but getting very little outcome from it? Yeah, those are the ones you probably need to start with and trial and error. Yeah, analyze it, trial and error, and yeah, eventually you will land on a method that gives you more leverage. Yeah, find out why is both not working and also working. Eliminate what is not working and just spam what is working. Like put it on steroids, what is working. And I think that will give you the direction you need to go to. But don't just be too focused on what is working. Also be open to what else can work. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, use this for your studies, use this for your projects, use this for your own passion pursuits and what have you. Because yeah, time is limited. I think we want to do more using less time so we can do more things. Yeah, so hopefully this gives you a new perspective of approaching things and maybe how you can, maybe the words optimize your lifestyle or your workflow or the way you approach things. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, just give it a like, give it a thumbs up, or subscribe if you are not subscribed yet, or share this out with more people so that whoever may benefit from this can also have access to this and hopefully improves their lives as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is the One More Thing episode. I'll see you next time. Peace.